You know, it occurs to me, last night I had, I think, 5 or 6 alcoholic beverages and at least half a dozen more non-alcoholic beverages, and not once did I go to the restroom. I think I might be dehydrated. Normally on my adventures I have a Camelback, but given that I'm surviving this entire trip out of my backpack, I nixed it for space. Ah well, mistakes were made.
Welcome to Proto-Future, a podcast about autistic femboys unintentionally infiltrating Amtrak's rolling boardroom. This is episode 5, part 3, Inaugural Borealis, day 3, Dignitaries car. In this episode, I finally attend the press festivities and ride the inaugural regional train of this millennium between St. Paul and Chicago. This is it. We're finally here, Pop-Tarts. This is going to be a honker of an episode, but by golly, I think it's worth every minute. To those just joining, in case it wasn't blindingly obvious, the whole day was in excess of 18 hours. The first draft of this episode was over 4.5 hours, but the final episode is, hopefully, a mote shorter than that. Ergo, the conversations, speeches, and celebrations you hear within are laboriously abridged. Consider it less an unerringly documentaried record and more audio impressionism to give you a flavor of the whole experience. I know I keep slipping further and further on my artificially accelerated release schedule, and I'm finding myself running right up against what a 1NB team can do, but this particular episode is one I wanted to get right for the ages. If you find yourself wanting for content, Patreon's recently released recommendations feature has allowed me to curate an annotated bibliography of related podcasts worth checking out. All are free to listen on the usual podcatchers, and I heartily recommend paying them mind. Anyway, without further ado.
I woke up a little bit earlier this morning to give myself more time for makeup. It's a pretty good makeup day, if I do say so myself. Today's a blue day. Blue eyeliner and lip stain.
Completely inadvertently, Amtrak blue, so it was a perfect outfit and makeup combination for the day.
I actually ended up giving myself a little bit too much time. I am just about a half hour ahead of schedule, so I will be arriving a bit early. But that gives me plenty of time to wander around St. Paul Union Depot, or SPUD. If I'm correct, they actually are offering tours of the train set. So given the fact that they're offering train set tours, I would not be surprised if they pulled out all stops and tried to get all modern equipment, a Siemens Charger and Venture coaches over here. An interesting thing about transit, and specifically opening day transit festivities, the marginal cost of a transit service is usually always fixed. But when a new transit service, particularly a rail transit one, starts running, it usually behooves the state agency to pull out all stops, to have a massive extravaganza, to give away oodles of free materials in order to get the public down to the service and to introduce them to the fact that it exists. And that usually ends up building a much more successful and robust ridership in the long run. Conservatives always like to complain about state DOTs throwing themselves a party, but in reality, it's just good business. I believe I'm on Hennepin Avenue, a yucky 8-lane strody strode. Again, a car sewer. So instead of taking the light rail to St. Paul, I'll be taking a bus, route number 94, which I actually believe goes on Interstate 94. It's notable because it was named a while back as a freeway without a future, and there are hopefully very near-term plans to completely remove the entire freeway, running straight from downtown Minneapolis all the way to St. Paul. City Nerd, the YouTuber, did a video about it recently, and it's part of a movement to remove a bunch of urban freeways from cities all across the country. In many ways, freeways, if they do have any purpose at all, it really should only have been to move people through desolate landscapes. There never really was a good reason to move people through cities at high speed, in part because a freeway can be built in the middle of nowhere for a very low cost. Urban freeways, however, were only ever built through massive demolition. Millions of people were displaced, and I-94 was no exception. Many freeways were intentional instruments of racism. This one was routed through the Rondo neighborhood, a lively and thriving African-American neighborhood that the state capitol nearby in St. Paul didn't like. So, down came the buildings and through went the freeway. And this isn't just a modern woke perspective. That was the stated goal of the project. Although they used a coded term, urban renewal. Many beautiful and lively neighborhoods were lost that way. So I thought that this particular leg of the journey, since I've already ridden all of the light rail, it would be interesting to ride the length of this freeway and see it for myself. Hopefully most of the freeways in this country are fully removed. Still would have been better to have never built them in the first place. There are a very small number of cities that had so-called freeway revolts that were able to avoid them. Probably the most famous are San Francisco, DC, and Vancouver. I also got a very interesting notification yesterday at 15:30. Amtrak alert. Effective on Tuesday, May 21st, Amtrak Hiawatha Train 333 and Train 340 are being renumbered, renamed, and extended across Wisconsin and up to St. Paul, Minnesota. Like Hiawatha trains, these new Amtrak Borealis trains will offer one-way tickets and multi-ride tickets booked through Ride Reserve. They will have cafe cars with regional items and even business class with an extra charge. For more information, see amtrak.com/Borealis or an Amtrak representative.
Second Avenue and Third Avenue, Park Avenue and Chicago Avenue, approaching 5th Street, approaching Market Street, approaching Wabasha Street and stop requested, approaching Minnesota Street, Jackson Street.
The bus was very slow through downtown Minneapolis. The transit signal priority on the light rail worked much better. Overall, it was a fully average highway. Nothing looked out of the ordinary if the traffic volumes were a bit light. Much like the Mall of America, I was taken aback by its mundanity. Hopefully, this means that more otherwise normal highways can be torn up in the future.
Approaching Union Depot Station.
It's a little recursive. The buses actually share platforms where the old railroad tracks used to go. Pretty good adaptive views, especially seeing as up until today it only got one train a day each way. Thank you! Very modern transit center and platforms. Oh, and this is interesting. It apparently also serves intercity buses. There's a Greyhound pulling in. That's always nice to see. What far too often happens is that cities disregard intercity buses, and of course, the private companies of intercity buses don't want to pay for a station, and so they just dump people off curbside unceremoniously. Apparently it's LEED certified and was renovated in 2014. Gorgeous interior, beautiful art. Well, what do you know? People in suits. I can only imagine what that's for. This is not only a gorgeous building, it's a massive one. Crawling with police. Okay, this is a gorgeous head house. Again, definitely not the largest, nowhere near the size of Philly's, but artistically incredible. It has a very rich yellow with a deep olive trim and a very faint pink, smooth and shiny marble floor. Over to one side, there's the Lowertown Bike Shop. The bike shop also offers espresso. In the center, there's what looks like a restaurant with ficus plants all around. They have a beautiful rainbow art set up for selfies in the center. Just out front of the depot is the terminus of the Green Line. There's an art piece integrated into the station of a steam locomotive wheel, which is of course about the size of a full human. There's a 3-car LRV train sitting at the station waiting. Turning back to look at the head house, it is a very large and very, I would say, understated Beaux Arts front. It has 10 smooth columns with not too much decorative work at the top or bottom, maybe about 10 meters tall or so, and then 2 small wings on either side. I like it because it is a very beautiful station, and it has all the elements of a station, but it's not comically uber-massive like you get with some stations. Philadelphia's 30th Street station is a very beautiful station, but it's so ginormous that it ends up being a vacuum for several blocks in every direction. And so it's not a very attractive place to wait. Here, though, it feels, again, understated. It fits so much better into the urban fabric. You can practically touch the other blocks and buildings around it. This is a fantastic train station. Heading back inside. Oh, I just noticed the restaurant. It's actually 2-tiered. Oh my goodness, and it's actually made out of the old ticketing area. The bar is just in front of it, and right behind the bar are the ticket windows. This is incredible. Oh, interesting. So, just beyond the head house, there's a very long, cavernous bridge that extends over the tracks. Of course, over the buses as well, but then over to the gates for the trains. But it's also a vaulted barrel ceiling. And the most interesting bit, there's a small... Oh, it's moving. It's kind of like a projector thing. There's a piece of art hanging from the ceiling. It appears to be a bunch of LEDs suspended on wires, and the LEDs are flickering in a way as to appear like the reflections coming down through water from a pool. And there are faint shadows that appear like people are swimming. It's a very beautiful piece of art. And then on the sides of the hall, there are 1930s Art Deco works depicting, I'm imagining, elements of Minnesota history. Above some of the gates to and from the buses and tracks, there are little sculptures, I would say. Oh, interesting. So one area is entirely roped off, presumably with seating only for luminaries. I did email them ahead of time, and I am technically media, so I wonder if I'm allowed to sit in. Hello, I'm wondering, I emailed the Great River Rail Commission ahead of time. Does this mean that I'm allowed in the press area?
Yes, that's what that big empty space there is for cameras. And there'll be a mulch box.
I'm a baby imposter syndrome-y journalist. Pin in that for later. And yes, this means I actually deserve the imposter syndrome and had no idea what I was doing. Yes, I ultimately was allowed to sit there.
By the way, I love your lanyard.
Thank you. It's a little obsolete because our 50th anniversary was now about 3 years ago.
There was a long line of passengers waiting to board the late eastbound Empire Builder.
I love your lipstick.
Thank you.
And your makeup.
Thank you.
Gorgeous.
A lot of the people who are here appear to be just regular average travelers, and that initially threw me off. It's like, how can so many people be here for a new train that's leaving in a few hours? And then I realized, oh wait, they're probably here waiting for the Empire Builder, and the Empire Builder's probably behind schedule. Pulled it up, and it is in fact 90 minutes behind schedule.
That's the issue with long-distance trains. Because their schedules are literally 20 to 50 or more hours in length, they are preternaturally prone to delay. 5 minutes every few hours for an ADA boarding at a station, a stuck switch, or waiting to pass a freight train really does add up, and they can usually end up an hour or 3 delayed by the time they reach the end of their route. And that's to say nothing about heftier interruptions. The schedules are often padded in the last few stations to provide better on-time performance, but intermediate stops are nonetheless short-shrifted. That's why regional routes like the new Borealis are so important. Not only do they provide additional frequencies to be more flexible for passengers, as well as additional capacity, by having fewer stations and shorter routes, they also improve reliability and on-time performance. That's not to say that the long-distance trains are defective. They still have a very important role to fill, even from a raw, unvarnished human transport perspective, in addition to the majesty of multi-day transcontinental vacation land cruises. I'll go into this a lot more in a future episode. Someday. Anyway, as I was wandering around, I saw an antechamber marked Historic Stair, and decided to pop in.
It's a little exhibit. Original track indicator signs, an image of James J. Hill, a St. Paul Union Depot paycheck, $45 for the first period of December 1919. Made out to a clerk. A thermite weld, a pickaxe, pictures of locomotives here. We acknowledge that the land upon which the Union Depot was built is indigenous land. We seek to honor the Dakota, Ojibwe, Sioux, and other native people on whose ancestral homelands and resources Union Depot stands. We acknowledge and condemn the forceful removal of tribes from this land. Today we recognize the land, the communities throughout Minnesota, and the passengers from around the world who come through the doors of Union Depot by providing a public place where all may take part in community gatherings, host events, and utilize the transportation systems. And we have a bunch of exhibits here. A lookout point facing to the north, a grand view of the Great Northern headquarters. A competitor bought the building next door, so James J. Hill built a penthouse to be 1 story higher. Surviving burial mounds along the ridge of the Mississippi River just north of Union Depot suggests the area has been inhabited for more than 2,000 years. The Dakota called the river area Imniza Skadan, Little White Rock, for the white sandstone cliffs that the current city of St. Paul was built on. The river valley was an important part of indigenous culture for fishing, trading, and daily life. As white explorers moved further into the center of the continent, areas became greatly contested by Great Britain, France, and Spain. Land east of the Mississippi River officially became part of the Northwest Territory in 1787 as part of the United States. Land west of the river joined in 1803 after the Louisiana Purchase. During this time, a deal now known as Pike's Purchase negotiated 100,000 acres from the Dakota to establish Fort Snelling on the confluence of the Mississippi and Minnesota rivers. Fur traders found plenty of hunting in the rich waters of Minnesota, and soon trading posts, taverns, and permanent homes grew along the river. The Minnesota Territory was given formal status in 1849, and St. Paul was named the capital. The lowest point in the valley around St. Paul was used as a crossing for pioneers and later as the northernmost steamboat landing. Soon a waterway city boomed and more transportation was necessary. James Jerome Hill soon moved to St. Paul at the age of 18 from Canada. His first job was with a steamboat company. Hill then became a wholesale grocer and dealt with steamboat and railroad freight. Hill loaded the William Crooks on its first week of service between St. Paul and Minneapolis in 1862. Hill started his own steamboat business and quickly formed a monopoly by taking control of coal transfers. He expanded into banking, land purchases, and flipping bankrupt businesses for profit. Completed on May 10, 1869, the Union Pacific section, significantly built by Minnesota's Irish workforce, swiftly ended the era of the Oregon Trail and accelerated the nation's westward expansion. Yet this monumental achievement also ushered in a period of extensive displacement for indigenous communities and societal struggles for newly freed slaves, signifying the intertwined narrative of progress and hardship. During the economic crash of 1873, many railroads declared bankruptcy. Hill teamed up with other business leaders to purchase the St. Paul and Pacific Railroad. The failing railroad thrived under Hill's management and was renamed the Great Northern Railway, later becoming a transcontinental railroad. Hill acquired additional railroads spanning all over the Midwest and western United States. Nicknamed the Empire Builder for creating a line through the less developed Pacific Northwest, Hill encouraged tourism along his routes by building hotels, supporting towns, and promoting legislation that established Glacier National Park in 1910. The same route west is still utilized today by Amtrak for passenger rail. You can board the Empire Builder and ride from Chicago to Seattle with a stop at the place that started it all, Union Depot. The first Union Depot was designed by local architect Leroy Buffington, opened in 1881. It combined and replaced 4 different stations. The station was struck by fire in 1884. The second Union Depot was rebuilt utilizing the same plans as the original building. Additional improvements were made to the original design, including adding a tower and space for offices and retail. A kitchen fire engulfed Union Depot in October 1913. The train shed was undamaged and continued to service 200 daily passenger trains. Oh my gods. Plans were drawn up for a grand new station. Construction began in 1917, but was slowed by the demands of World War I. Thousands of soldiers departed Union Depot from the temporary platform near where the waiting room is currently. Railroads were responsible for the success in World War I by moving massive numbers of troops, tanks, supplies, horses, munitions, and equipment between Britain and the front. In the first months of World War I, Britain had transported over 120,000 servicemen to Southampton, where they boarded boats to France. Trains reached the dock every 12 minutes for 3 weeks. As World War II dawned, America responded. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the railroads moved to the forefront, transporting supplies, food, troops, and materials to both coasts. Use of the railroads increased astronomically. Locomotives grew in size and power to respond to the hauling needs and distance traveled. Construction was completed in 1926, including 10 new platforms, 21 passenger tracks, a marble-floored waiting area, and plenty of amenities. As the major transit hub in Minnesota, Union Depot saw many visiting presidents, dignitaries, and famous royals, including the Duke and Duchess of Windsor in 1941. As World War II took over the United States, Union Depot was used for troop and equipment deployments. 10 years after the war, steam locomotives had been replaced by diesel, a far cheaper option to operate. Luxury train travel soon boomed with dome-top cars, sitting rooms, personal chefs, and posh decor. Travelers could easily visit distant parts of the country with comfort and ease. In the height of rail travel, Union Depot saw 20,000 passengers a day. Over the years, Union Depot continued to be a hub for travel and a gathering space with numerous amenities, dining options, and beautiful architecture. In 1956, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed legislation to construct an interstate highway system. The development of this interstate system also played a part in the end of travel by rail. As construction was funded and roads expanded in the 1960s, the Great American Road Trip was born. Scenic routes were built and encouraged by advertising, television shows, and celebrities. Travel by train dropped in popularity, and by the end of the 1960s, railroads were losing millions. The Burlington's afternoon Zephyr departed Union Depot for the last time and marked the end of passenger rail at Minnesota's largest train station. The next day, the National Railroad Passenger Corporation, Amtrak, was launched with operations in Minnesota. The waiting room and concourse were closed to the public along with access to the tracks. With the rise of commercial airlines and budget-friendly options, travel by air quickly became the standard in the 1970s. People could travel in comfort and reach their destinations in a matter of hours instead of days. Union Depot was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1974. In 1977, the property was sold to the Postal Service. All tracks, boarding platforms, and the roundhouse were razed. The property was sold to Ramsey County Regional Railroad Authority 31 years later. In the possession of the Ramsey County Regional Railroad Authority, the ambitious restoration of Union Depot began. Meeting with architects, historical societies, and contractors, the goal was to preserve the property's architecture and integrity while meeting the needs of a modern multimodal transit hub. On December 8, 2012, after comprehensive restoration and renovation efforts, Union Depot reopened its doors to the public. Celebrating the return of a genuine passenger rail station to St. Paul, this marked a triumphant chapter in the history of Union Depot.
And with almost perfect timing...
Morning, everyone. Welcome to Union Depot. Amtrak would like to announce that tours of the new Borealis train are now available at Gate C. Those tours are available from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. You are welcome to go downstairs, take a look at the new train service that's starting today.
It's not a Venture train set. It's Horizon coaches. It's not even a Charger, it's a P-42. At least in the new livery.
You here for the tour? Go right in there. Head on downstairs.
Thank you. I guess it's surprising that they're offering tours of such vintage equipment, but also I guess I realize that they don't really have Midwest regional trains here, so this is technically new to Minnesota, even if the cars aren't. So many police officers, my God. So many guns. Yeep. Thank you.
Of course.
The new train smell.
The one good thing, though, Amtrak has done a fantastic job of retrofitting the interiors of all of their cars. The Beech Grove shops work wonders. Yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense that there wouldn't be any Venture cars here, seeing as those are mostly paid for by Illinois. Every seat has a flyer describing the service. It's, I think, 4 cars long, 3 Horizon, 1 Am fleet.
Actually, it was 4 Horizons and an Am fleet.
Aha. That is the back end of the 42 Genesis. I do want to check out the Am fleet, because so far I have not seen a cafe car.
Isn't this swell?
Yes.
I personally would not have used such a Midwestern folksyism, but I agree with the sentiment.
Ah, here we go. The Am fleet. Oh, interesting. So it's typical M cafe, with the cafe segment in the middle, but Whereas normally you would find the cafe diner-style seating on both sides. Instead, it's diner-style seating on one side, and it's business class seating on the other. In this case, the far tail end of the train. So I'm assuming that this is a specialty AM cafe that is meant for only extremely far out of the way routes. Huh. Check out the menu and wait, hold on, something. Menu shot, menu shot, something, menu shot. That one's for you, Miles. I like your shirt. Are you from Mindot?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so can I then show you a picture?
Okay, forgive me, but given the luminaries in attendance, I just had to show off my Talgo and Mindot colors, and this was definitely not the last time I did so that day.
Oh my goodness, look at that. Very cool.
It took me 2 years to do that.
Pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know if Trainiac is in the DSM-4.
Generally, everyone seemed quite impressed with what I'd made, and in many ways astonished that there was ever such a thing as a state DOT fanboy. Anyway, having completed the exploration of the train set, I stepped back outside.
Manual ADA lifts, which is one of the reasons why we need more venture cars, because they have integrated automatic ADA lifts.
Now, I am aware that there have been many complaints about the discomfort of the seating on the new venture cars, but to my understanding, there is currently a program underway to upgrade all the seats in the new cars to a more suitable furnishment. Irrespective of this standalone snafu, the operational considerations of having rolling stock made after I was born are undeniable, and I eagerly await their adoption system-wide.
Ah, the good old GE whoop. I didn't know that was a thing until somebody told me in words, and then once you heard it, then you couldn't unhear it.
For reference again, for those who missed it. And again. And again. And just because I'm the one in charge of this podcast and can do whatever I want... Anyway...
Gorgeous station platform, which is all the more astonishing given that until today it only ever saw 2 trains a day, one in the obscenely early morning, one in the obscenely late night. Locomotive number 174, and it is one of the P-42 Genesis units in the new paint scheme, Phase 7 I believe. Red nose, dark blue swoop, medium light blue trail. Oh my god, the view is actually really cool. So we are right on the Mississippi River. There's one of the many concrete arch bridges going to the south side of the river. And then I'm assuming that's Dayton's Bluff over behind the highway. Some large, looming and gorgeous palisades. Tan sandstone eroding down, just draped with a verdant green scenery. Still a full hour until the event begins. But, would you look at that? Builder is in fact somewhere around Midway Station. So if I twiddle my thumbs... Oh my goodness, Union Depot, it has television screens out here. This is a very luxurious station, practically European in its styling. Again, for a station that, until today, got 2 trains a day. Several people setting up film cameras. Oh, interesting. There is a double-stack freight train headed by Union Pacific that is currently crossing a bridge over the Mississippi right now. Gave a toot to everybody celebrating. I can't help but notice you're from All Aboard Minnesota?
I am, yes. I am actually on the All Aboard Wisconsin Board of Directors, and then I work with the National Association of Rail Passengers out of Washington, D.C.
Oh, what's his name?
Jim Matthews.
Yes, he's an incredible person. I've gotten to meet him in person once. I love him.
Is he here today? I could have swore I saw him, but I
didn't know.
No, it might have been a look-alike, but I thought...
If he is, I'll have to say hi to him again then. But I was going to say then, especially if you're part of All Aboard Wisconsin, I was going to suggest for the Borealis that we could make it faster and reduce travel times by making it run express everywhere between Winona, Minnesota, and Glenview, Illinois, in order to punish Wisconsin for electing Scott Walker.
That's a good one.
I also told that joke approximately a dozen or so other times over the course of that day.
Orphan Talbot about
Wow, yeah, that's great.
Could we be punishing Governor Evers right now?
Anyway, back on track.
Oh, I know. A lot of people have a lot of comments. It goes back years, but it was enough to set us back.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And now, sub-Saharan Africa has more modern passenger rail infrastructure than Wisconsin.
I know. How does that figure? And what is your name?
G4 of the Proto-Future podcast.
Do you ride Amtrak quite a bit or not?
A little bit. I've logged over, 20,000 miles on Amtrak?
Okay, that's pretty good.
At the time of publication, and as of literally just this morning, I have logged 28,939 kilometers on Amtrak on 43 different trips aboard 20 individual routes. And yes, I keep a spreadsheet.
Do you live here in the city center?
No, not at all. I live in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. Well, I live in Wisconsin, but I used to live in the Twin Cities here. So I have connections here, and I live in Eau Claire.
So then what's the other one then? Because I always thought that the Borealis was going to be the name of the one that went through Eau Claire, and then this was going to be called the Great River.
I don't know. There was some issues about the naming, and they went with Borealis for
They
this.
just swap over at last minute.
Yeah.
Although I kind of like TCMC. That has a ring to it.
Well, it does. That's true. So, but it'll be nice because at some point we hope in the future for people that live in Eau Claire that need to get to Toma, they'll have a shuttle connector, and possibly from Rochester, Minnesota to La Crosse, and from Columbus over to Madison. Right now, WISDOT does not have money budgeted for that, but we're hoping down the road they'll put it in the budget because that would make a big difference for some people that can't drive or shouldn't drive to have that option to connect. But at least with smaller stations like Toma, La Crosse, there is plenty of parking.
Yeah, well, it was a pleasure meeting you.
Yes, all right.
I'm going to look around for Jim Matthews then. It was a pleasure, Mark.
Yeah, good to meet you.
The builders should be coming in just a few moments. Hot rail. Oh, Siemens chargers. Fantastic stop, right on the dime. And also comparatively whisper quiet too. There are already people in the media area.
Channel 4 is in Milwaukee. WCCO, Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Okay. Because he's with Channel 4, I'm with Channel Nobody. Important. So I was just wondering if there was like any specific place that I was allowed to go or...
So we have this area for media, and here's the mode box if you need to...
I am not that sophisticated.
Okay.
Thank you for your faith in me. I assure you it's misplaced.
You'll get there. You will get there, right? Right?
Apparently, as I later had to Google for myself, the mode box is basically an audio splitter, sending the audio readouts from the podium microphones directly to the recording devices of attached cameras, giving reporters a clean feed of whatever the presenter is saying. I, with my amateur-grade handheld recorder, just so happened to lack the equipment necessary to plug into the mode box. Still, though, it was a fascinating and enlightening experience to be a part of the press pool.
So yeah, so you can be over here. Yeah, that's it. And thank you for coming.
Apparently, several people seemingly recognized me from a lot of Twin Cities area Pride events, which I have transcontinental alibis for not having attended. It seems I have a doppelganger running around Minneapolis.
I think I met you before.
Where?
Maybe at one of the rallies for gender justice or something. I don't know.
Oh, well, I don't live in Minnesota at all, so that would be
really?
quite interesting if you've met me before.
That's awesome, though. Well, welcome.
Well, I thought I met you, you were online on Redwood.
I don't live in Minnesota at all.
Oh. Well, you
Trippy.
But no, pleasure meeting you. Where are you from?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, what brings you here?
This.
Oh, wow.
Actually, oh goodness, I recognize it. Excuse me, didn't you just give a Zoom a few months ago with a bicycle group?
I saw you and we were together.
Oh my goodness.
I'm Derek with Amtrak. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah.
Derek James gave a presentation to the League of American Bicyclists last year about all the different ways you could bring your bicycle on board, as well as the futureward developments to improve ease and access. It is well worth a watch. I highly recommend searching it up. Anyway, seeing as I'm a baby journalist with autistic social anxiety, it took me a while to build up the courage to approach complete strangers asking for an interview of what they did, and by complete luck, I managed to hit a home run on my very first bat.
Can I ask you guys, how are you associated with all of this? Wait a second. Jim Matthews?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I know you, I've met. You gave a presentation in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania once, pre-apocalypse, so that must have been like 8 or 9 years ago.
Oh my God, and you remember that?
How could I forget? You are a bottomless font of enthusiasm. It was a genuine honor just to be in your presence. I remember literally fist pumping.
He is a mover and shaker.
Yes.
I'm none of those things.
I've been a gold member of the, what used to be NARC, what's it now, RPA?
Yeah.
For at least, 4 or 5 years now. I'm so happy to meet you.
I'm deeply embarrassed. I'm not that big a deal.
Yeah, I didn't recognize you with the hat on.
Yeah, no, there.
There we go.
At this, Jim removed his red baseball cap to reveal his quintessentially bald head.
This is not the Harvard hat.
My Harvard hat's in the bag.
Of course it is.
I love my Harvard hat.
How did you get into this real advocacy?
Oh boy, I've been doing this for a long time. So when I worked at Aviation Week, I had an office in DC and an office in New York. And so 3 days a week I went back and forth, DC, New York, DC, New York. And I wound up on the Amtrak Customer Advisory Committee because I was doing that trip all the time. They had me representing the Acela riders. So that was volunteer, that was just kind of, a side thing. And then when I left the ACAC, apparently the recruiters figured out that this was something I really liked to do. And in the summer of 2014, they came to me and said, do you want to do this full time? And I said, yeah, sure, let's do that. And that was 10 years ago, and here I am.
I love all of your columns in
the Passenger Trains Journal?
Yeah. I especially love all of your insight. It really does seem like you ride not just the Northeast Corridor, but also all the rest of the trains too.
Try to.
And it also really seems like you helped to buoy the entire passenger train advocacy through the years of Delta Dick.
Well, Delta Dick is standing right behind you, or sitting right behind you.
Oh.
Just so you know.
Fuck. Okay, I did a rude stupid here, and Mr. Anderson, I am sorry. But at least from the perspective on the ground of a rider and rail advocate, those were really tough years. What, with the loss of onboard dining service and the threatened destitution of the chief. Among other things, I think stemming from a misunderstanding that trains are a service, not a profit-seeking business. Nobody complains when Am Roads faces a revenue shortfall, given that the number of tolled roads is a rounding error on total road mileage. But, for some reason, Amtrak is expected by some to run like a lean, profit-generating, independent company. As a result, those were the years in which I first got into the business of rail advocacy, and that very risk to long-distance trains led to my grand 10,000-kilometer Amtrak trip from Altoona to Seattle and back via the Builder, Starlight, and Zephyr. Though I guess I should have been kinder in recognizing that some of those indelicacies may have been less the choice of an executive and more the pressure of a hostile presidential and legislative oversight characteristic to those times. I probably deserved to be put in my place a little less tactfully than was proffered by Mr. Matthews.
It's interesting, though, but think about this. He's here, right? So what does that tell us? Yeah, I mean, look, to me, no, I think there's a lot of negativity, which just kind of comes from, 6 decades of starvation rations, right? And so one of the things I really wanted to try to do is to get people excited again, get people to see that, no, we can look forward. And it's why I'm not a big nostalgia buff. It doesn't mean I don't like the old trains, doesn't mean I don't like the steam. It's all beautiful and I love it. But let's do this, right? Let's look forward.
Oh my gods, did my personal hero and the greatest voice of our generation in passenger rail advocacy just reinvent the concept of my podcast from first principles? And so eloquently, too.
I'm not anti-nostalgia, but I think that This is going to be kind of a hot take, I guess, but I think every Santa train, every steam engine excitation sets us behind, because it sets for the public that this is an old-fashioned thing that doesn't really exist anymore. It's a novelty, and it's not a novelty. We got people out there who are making their living, running trains, modern trains, and we're getting new equipment all the time. It's a technological industry. That's something I get pretty excited about. And again, look at, I'm also an aviator, right? And I've flown biplanes, and they're beautiful. They're gorgeous. But I don't go around saying that we should replace the 787 with biplanes. That's the difference.
Exactly. Or people saying that aviation is a thing of the past because biplanes.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Look where we are today. We're going to launch a new service that's going to be daylight service, so people can go to the Dells. It can be a reasonable trip for a nice weekend at the Dells or something like that. This is a practical thing. 155,000 people, at least, are going to take this train. And it's going to generate $25 million of economic benefit for the state of Minnesota. And it's going to do that for whatever Minnesota's piece of this is going to be, 3 million, 4 million. I defy you to find a bank where you can get that kind of return. I think, honestly, a lot of the value of this train is going to come from all those stops. And it's why we're going to get state money to do this, because they can point to that benefit.
And we just need to have the NLX.
Well, yes, that's the next up, right?
NLX being the project acronym for the Northern Lights Express, the proposed train running between Minneapolis and Duluth. And so that's the whole conceit of my model railroad. If the state DOTs won't build it, then I'm going to build the damn train for myself. The only minor plan in my flaw is that it's miniature.
That's right. But it's for you.
The person laughing in the background is Joseph Aiello, Director of Community Engagement and Organization for the Rail Passengers Association, for which Jim Matthews is CEO. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience.
Thank you.
Oh, I love your nail polish.
Thank you. Same to you.
No, this is awful. I threw it on in 2 minutes 2 nights ago.
Oh, I think we're getting ready to do this. I think we're supposed to start taking our seats.
Well, it was absolutely fantastic to meet you again. I am so happy that I got to do this.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
There's a whole row of cameras setting up. It's quite an affair.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Union Depot. This is an exciting day. Look at this great crowd. I am Susan Martinson, and I'm chair of the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners, and on behalf of my entire board and our staff who run and operate this amazing facility, welcome to the Union Depot. I also have the honor and privilege of chairing the Great River Rail Commission, and several of our commission members are here. If you're here, raise your hand. Folks who have worked really hard for many years to make sure that we could get this second train for the child. Congratulations. We are so excited that this service represents a significant step toward accessible, sustainable travel in our region. The Borealis train offers unparalleled amenities, and if you haven't ridden the train before, I'll tell you the track itself is incredibly beautiful, far more pristine than driving your car. The Borealis train will significantly reduce car travel, eliminating 580,000 annual miles driven by cars. This is huge for our environment and an incredible reason why we work so hard for this train. The service also provides a safe and convenient travel option for those who cannot drive or choose not to, enhancing mobility for all residents. It is my tremendous pleasure now to introduce our FRA Administrator, Amit Bose.
Thank you to Amtrak and the transportation departments of Minnesota, Illinois, and Wisconsin. On behalf of the Federal Railroad Administration and the Biden-Harris administration, congratulations on the official start of the new Borealis service. FRA is proud to strongly support expanded passenger rail service between St. Paul and Chicago through Milwaukee. Investments in rail have long helped Midwesterners and the region's economy. For Midwesterners, without a car, or those looking for an alternative to congested highways, this service provides an environmentally friendly transportation alternative. one that will take dirty emissions out of our air and cars off of our congested roadways. Across America, passenger rail travel is approaching and in some cases exceeding pre-pandemic ridership numbers. In 2020, before the Biden-Harris administration took office, passenger rail funding at the federal level was a question mark. Let's not forget that. It was a question mark. Essential projects were left withering and service was being suspended. Now, we are not only talking about passenger rail expansion like today, we are seeing progress firsthand that will deliver the world-class passenger rail service that Americans demand, need, and deserve. I want to recognize all the Senate and House members across the 3 states in attendance today who supported the legislation, as well as the regional leaders working to advance rail efforts in local communities at the grassroots. The 5 years of bipartisan infrastructure law funding for passenger and freight rail improvement projects are historic. Just keep in mind, those are just the beginning. It's just the beginning for expanded passenger and freight rail across the country. Today is another big win for passenger rail expansion in America. It's a win for the Midwest, and it's a win for the growing number of Americans in this region and nationwide who rely and benefit from passenger rail. So all aboard.
Thank you, Amit. Now I would love to welcome our own Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, and thank you, Administrator Rose. We're super excited to have you here, and we know that President Biden knows a little something about trains, doesn't he? So I am just thrilled to be able to be here to say that here in Minnesota, we are all about making life and resources, whether that is housing, food, transportation, or fun, accessible and affordable to folks. And that's exactly why we are so excited about Borealis. I can't wait to welcome more visitors and tourists to Minnesota and simultaneously offer Minnesotans another efficient and economic way to travel. And if you haven't heard, we have a new catchphrase here in Minnesota for visitors.
I have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years. Bring your ass.
Thank you, Charles Barkley and Anthony Edwards. So, and many of the stops on the Borealis route have been accessible only by car for years. And now, a family vacation to the Dells or to Milwaukee just got a whole lot easier. So thank you again to everybody who helped make this possible with all of the inaugural riders today. Excited for you, and I'm excited to be a passenger soon and this summer. You said all aboard, but I'm going to throw it back to come on, ride this train and ride it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. We appreciate our senator to our 14 at the moment, so we're going to just move things around, and I'm going to welcome up Charlie Hammond, Representative Betty McCollum's office.
We are Minnesotans. We are, if not adaptable. Reading a letter statement from our office. Dear friends, thank you for the invitation to attend the launch of Amtrak's Borealis service. I regret that I am unable to join you today for this special occasion, but I want to extend my best wishes for a successful, wonderful celebration. Complementing the existing Hiawatha service and the iconic Empire Builder, the Borealis will provide a safe, sustainable, accessible, and pleasant travel to thousands. By lessening the burden on our highways, reducing carbon emissions, and costing less than other types of transportation, this is a victory for passengers, for the environment, and for our regional economy. Here in St. Paul, this line enhances our historic Union Depot station, our crown jewel of multimodal transit, providing bus, light rail, and Amtrak services under one roof. Thank you, and congratulations to everyone.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us in this celebration of this new passenger rail service today. For our North Star state, of course, the name Borealis brings many images to mind, including, of course, the recent Aurora Borealis, which made big news. Today, we are making news with another Borealis, one that's expected to be seen regularly in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. Beginning today, this round-trip connection connecting urban and rural areas, providing another safe, reliable transportation option to all who ride. It may not have been easy to get here, but it is certainly worth it. You know, it's been almost 40 years since Minnesota last sponsored a passenger train, also known as the North Star, which ended service in 1985. At 411 miles in length, the Borealis is the longest state-supported route in the Midwest. I'd like to thank Governor Walz, Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, and the Minnesota State Legislature for their support to secure state funds to make this service possible. And thank you to our U.S. Senators Klobuchar and Smith and Representative McCollum for supporting the federal funding pursuit. Congratulations, everybody, on reaching this milestone.
And now we have a special treat live from the Senate floor, Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Washington, and never miss those, but this would be a lot more fun than we had. And I just want to congratulate everyone on the celebration of the launch of Amtrak's new Borealis train, and it's such a fitting name given the beauty of the Northern Lights just a couple of weeks ago. Thanks to everyone who is there, including the Lieutenant Governor and of course Trista, the Amtrak CEO Stephen Gardner, and all that are there. 9 years ago, this train route was just an idea, words on a page, but after countless hours of hard work and insistence, we have gotten it done. It is a historic moment for our state. It's the first time in 45 years that there will be twice daily trains from St. Paul to Chicago. The train will open doors to travel and opportunity for so many. Just so you guys know, when I was growing up, my mom actually didn't drive, and all of her relatives were in Wisconsin, and so we took the train there all the time. And I memorized all of the stops on what was then the Milwaukee Road, and it's a big part of my growing up, and it's one of many, many reasons I was a strong advocate for adding this extra route, which will now help students traveling to and from the U of M and UW-Madison, families taking a vacation on both sides, and of course, passengers from Wisconsin taking the train to the Twin Cities so they can watch the Vikings beat the Packers. I am sure, but we'll wind beneath our sails with the Timberwolves, so I thought I'd kind of continue that theme. I'm sure nobody is more excited today than everyone who worked on this project. It's local leaders, state officials, our Federal Railroad administrator, thanks so much, Administrator Bose, and everyone there that did such a great job. I just wish I could see all of you today. As you all know, this wouldn't be happening if we didn't work so hard on the bipartisan infrastructure law. As Jim Oberstar, our transportation guru that we miss very much, once said, there's no such thing as a Democratic bridge or a Republican bridge.
I actually happen to disagree with that. A Republican bridge is a bridge built only for cars, lacking sidewalks and endangering pedestrians trying to cross. By contrast, a fantastic example of a Democratic bridge is the Bridge of the People Tillamook Crossing in Portland, Oregon, a bridge designed for light rail, streetcars, buses, bicyclists, and foot traffic, but expressly prohibiting private automobiles and trucks. All bridges should be Democratic bridges, and thereby take the keys of infrastructure and governance away from frothing-at-the-mouth racist, misogynistic, theocratic, dingle-tarred hillbillies.
I'm going to sign off, but I want to congratulate everyone for your hard work on this exciting new chapter. Enjoy the rest of the celebration, and I can't wait to ride the train. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Next, another senator, our state senator, and Representative Frank Hornstein, they always come in pairs. But these two gentlemen have worked for decades on transportation and have been longtime champions of the train. Please, gentlemen.
Yes, we always come up together. We're very nervous when we're separate and apart from each other. Thank you all very, very much. We are so excited to be today. A gigantic congratulations to everyone who worked so hard for so long. This is a model of persistence and organizing. We were talking with Trista earlier, and she was remembering people on whose shoulders we stand who aren't able to be here today with us. And we remember and honor their incredible, fine work, who had that vision when it was just a twinkle in our eyes. So this train, of course, is a vision of a community and a place, just like our Lieutenant Governor said, where everyone matters and can live the vibrant lives of opportunity to which they aspire. Like our Senator said, think of all of the opportunities that now open up around jobs and economic opportunity, school, visiting family, recreating, vacationing. I don't want to get into naming all the individuals who worked so hard, but a couple of key individuals who have been at it for a long time. I saw Barb Cohen in the crowd earlier, former Director of Transit for Livable Communities. Barb, this is a legacy to you and your excellent work. And of course, we can't not mention Derek James with Amtrak. How many meetings and phone calls we have with him over the years and trying to figure out the pieces, the policy, the money. And last year when we passed that transportation bill, the one which we worked so hard for 30 years, the transportation bill of our dreams, and we put the final pieces in place, and that was exciting. Frank Marcy, everyone.
Let's give it up for Scott Dibble. Amazing visionary. My transportation mentor in many ways is Scott Dibble. Well, it's such an honor to be here. Before I get into some brief comments, because we've got a train to catch, I wanted to make sure that several of our colleagues are acknowledged who have been working on this issue as well. We have Representative Samakal Hussein here from St. Paul, and Jeff Brand from Greater Minnesota understands why this is so important for the entire state. So he's here too. Thank you, Jeff, for being here. Look, this is a win-win-win for our economy. It's a win for the environment. It's a win for commerce and tourism. And that's why this is so critically important. When this successful train proves itself, we've got other passenger rail plans to implement as well. So this is a hugely important day for Minnesota. It's a game changer. For me, as the transportation chair that doesn't drive, it gives me an additional choice. But people love the train, and people love the option that it gives us. We wouldn't be here, as Senator said, without so many people working for so long on this. It was a real grassroots movement. We don't win without a movement. The Walz administration stepped up in a huge way and got us across the finish line in that very difficult year when we had divided government. So thank you to the Department of Transportation, the Walz administration. We wouldn't be here without you. And I also have to give personal plaudits for Derek James, who is just unbelievable every step of the way. So thank you, Amtrak. Thank you, FRA. Thank you, Linda. Thank you to the federal delegation, the state delegation, and our county commissioners, and all of the people at the grassroots level, everyday citizens that showed up at the Capitol and wrote letters to make this happen. Thank you so very much. I'm looking forward to getting on that train.
Thank you, Senator Dibble and Representative Hornstein. The train will be just in time before your retirement. Now, it is the Union Depot, and we know that trains don't run without our union partners. So I would like to introduce Greg Reagan, President of the Transportation Trades Department, AFL-CIO.
I'm Greg Reagan, President of the Transportation Trades Department, AFL-CIO. We represent 37 unions across all modes of transportation and every single rail link in this country. I was telling a friend last night, and I got really sick and tired of hearing members of Congress go overseas, go to Japan, go to Germany, go to Europe and say, why can't we have that service? Why can't we have that? Because the answer was obvious. The answer is they prioritize it, they invest in it, they make it a feature of their culture and society. And now, for the first time in decades, we are doing that through investments, the largest investment in passenger rail in the history of our country for the infrastructure law. And this is what happens. We have new service, we have better service, we have better options. We're greening the environment, we're creating good union jobs in places like here at Union Depot. That is what investment means. view this as a really important celebration, but it's also the beginning. This is the start of what will be a revolutionary expansion in passenger rail in our country. And I, for one, can't wait to see what we can accomplish. And more so, I can't wait for those members of Congress in Germany and Tokyo and other places to go home from visits here and say, why can't we have that? Because we're going to build that right here. Thank you all.
Thank you. Can you feel anticipation? We're getting closer and closer to this ribbon cutting and for that train to be on its way. And I just want to say that we extend our heartfelt thanks for our state legislators who are here with us, for supporting passenger rail initiatives, for their efforts in securing funding to match federal grants for capital improvements, establishing state passenger rail fund, and staffing the Minnesota Department of Transportation with dedicated professionals, many of who are here and a few retirees who came back for this moment in the audience, who are pivotal in creating new legacy of passenger rail in Minnesota. And there's a few more folks that I just need to name because they worked so hard on making sure this happened. And that includes State Senator Jeremy Miller, State Rep. Gene Pulowski, State Rep. Maria Isa Perez-Vega, Representative Samaka Hussein, former Minnesota State Senator Scott Newman, former Minnesota State Senator Katie Sieben, former State Representative and Chair of the House Capital Bonding Committee, Alice Hausman, the members of the current and former Great River Rail Commission. I'm going to get emotional because we lost two members. They worked so hard all the way to their dying days and they wanted to see this train. Goodhue County Commissioner Paul Drogos and former Ramsey County Commissioner Janice Brennan. Winona County Commissioner Chris Meyer is here with us, and her husband, Winona City Councilor Paul Schollmeyer, former Winona Mayor Jerry Miller, Hastings City Councilor Mark Vaughn, former MnDOT Commissioner Margaret Anderson Kellehart, Joe Mueller, BLET State Legislative Board Chairman Chad Rorick, Vice General Chairman Midwest Region, our CPKC representatives who are here with us as well. Thanks to CPKC and their agreement with Amtrak to start this service early before all the capital improvements are done. We're getting those done, so thank you very much. Huge thank you, Ariel, Giordano, and Mary Lloyd, and Bill Wakeling. We appreciate you so very much. Our all aboard Minnesota friends and advocates, and President Brian Nelson, thank you for joining us and making this happen. HDR Consultants, represented by Rick Daglin and Travis Hall, who are providing refreshments and making us all be hydrated. Our High-Speed Rail Association, represented by Chris Ott. And of course, my fellow Ramsey County Board of Commissioners who are all here and been working on this for a very long time. Thank you very much. And with that, okay, here we are. I am going to now introduce our Amtrak CEO, Stephen Gardner, who is going to get this thing going. Stephen.
Good morning. Thank you, Tristan, for that introduction. Commissioner Ortega, thank you both for this wonderful building. It's always just a joy when I come here and see this marvel. And let me just begin by thanking everyone who you thank, because it truly is, I mean, people say the sort of euphemism, it takes a village, but I think you actually did describe like a full content of a village there, of all the people who make today possible. On behalf of Amtrak's Board of Directors, our Chairman, Tony Kosha, and the 23,000 folks across the United States who work for Amtrak, including the 100 or so folks who work for Amtrak here in Minnesota and Wisconsin, we are incredibly excited to be here to start this new service, Borealis. We welcome Minnesota as our 18th state partner. They join Wisconsin and Illinois to start our 29th border service around the United States. This would not have been possible without the steady leadership of Governor Walz. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for your presence here and your support. And of course, MnDOT's Commissioner, Nancy Daubenberger, and all of the MnDOT staff. We're really happy to welcome you to the Amtrak state family. These services account for half of our ridership across the United States, which this year will be over 32 million riders. Once again, setting a new record for Amtrak, back above the level of service and ridership we had So the old story is true. When we put it out there, when we make it happen, people people come. People are coming in droves to ride trains all over the United States. And I want to thank particularly the MnDOT folks for sticking with us here. As you heard from the Lieutenant Governor, it might not be so easy to get the 3 states to always be on the same page. And it took some time for all of us to get organized in the way that would make this service a success, but we did it. And it's incredible testament to your efforts and to the leadership of the state and both chambers of the legislature who made this happen. Now I want to recognize Amit Bose and the Federal Railroad Administration. This is an incredible time for the US DOT and for the leadership of Secretary Buttigieg and Amit. Never before have we invested as a nation like we are investing now in railroads. The entire amount of funding that Amtrak received in 50 years is less than the amount of funding provided by the bipartisan infrastructure law for these next 5. As our colleague Greg Rickman says, passenger rail investment in the United States has been a rounding error, both relative to our transportation spending generally and across the globe. And we have finally changed that trajectory to create a system in the United States where rail can play a bigger role in American mobility. I want to turn to one of our rail partners here for a special note of appreciation. The primary owner of this train we utilize is CPKC. CPKC is our premier host partner, providing the best passenger rail service hosting that we have across our 46-state network. And they have been with us every step of the way to build a viable service that supports not only the growth of passenger, but freight. That's what we're here about, trying to get more value out of this system, the largest rail system of any nation on Earth. How do we use it for moving passengers and goods so that rail can play a bigger role in American mobility? And CPKC has been with us the whole way to make this service happen and to look to the future. So we appreciate their support. We've been around for 53 years, but I feel like we're just starting anew at Amtrak. With so many new investments, with so many new partnerships, and so much demand, so many people across America anxious to take the train. We, I'm sure, will see big success here in Minnesota. We appreciate the existing partnerships we have in Illinois and Wisconsin. But together, these 3 states in this service are showing the route to the future. We promised in 2022 we'd get this train happening in 2024, and here we are today. As a testament to all the effort and excitement here today, we will be giving out gift bags across our route as we visit some of the many communities. And we thought I wanted to start with a special gift for the Lieutenant Governor and for Amit Bose of our special Borealis branded backpacks. Sure to be real collector's items in the future. You know, no putting these on eBay for at least like 50 years. So I'm going to hand these off to them, and then we're going to do one more important thing, and then we'll get out to the cab. My days in the cab are over for the most part, but every once in a while I get to play conductor. And what we're all going to do together here is sound the all aboard, so we can go ahead and cut this ribbon and head down to the train. All right, so on 3, you ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
In the ensuing kerfuffle to scramble for the train, I tracked down the MnDOT Deputy Commissioner to show off my model and proclaim myself as the world's only state DOT groupie, and I happened to miss the goodie bag, so I can't report on what was inside. Ah well, I have more memories than most of this fantastic event, and I'll find myself a pin on the Amtrak store someday.
Designated spot to board?
No, are you with the Amtrak crew?
Yes.
Yeah, then we're going down to the first car.
Thank you.
Aha! I figured out what went wrong. In editing, the microphone was closer to the conductor's mouth than mine, so you can hear him better than I could at the time. Over the wind and the people, I thought he was asking me if I was riding the Amtrak, as opposed to just touring the train set. And him directing me to the first car didn't ring any alarm bells either. If, like me, you ride Amtrak a lot, you know that they stage entire cars by destination or groups of destinations. This allows only 1 or 2 cars to be opened at any given station, especially useful for short platforms, and these are usually synchronized to precede major stations to generate fully empty cars and simplify boarding. For example, if you know a ton of people are going to be boarding at Atlanta, you'll group into one car all the passengers headed to Greenville, Clemson, Toccoa, and Gainesville, so that you'll have a completely empty car to absorb all the Atlanta passengers waiting. As I was showing him my ticket headed towards Chicago, I naively thought, he must be sending me to the car for all the Chicago-bound passengers. And seeing as Chicago is the far end of the line, it makes sense that it would be the far end of the train. I paid this brief interaction no more mind until, well, you'll see.
Thank you.
I like your lipstick.
Thank you.
That is cute.
Oh, look at that. I'm sitting near the front of the train, on the train left, which should give me a very good view of the Mississippi.
Ladies and gentlemen, just a quick announcement. Anybody that is on this train that is not traveling, you need to exit now. We're getting ready to leave. Anybody that's on this train that is not traveling with us, thank you.
Happy to be here. All right, so hello, Stephen.
Hello, G4.
Nice to meet you.
I run a tiny little podcast that nobody listens to.
Okay.
I am very honored that the CEO of Amtrak is talking to me.
Okay, maybe I was a little too modest with how I introduced myself there, but this was about when I started to realize that something was off about my positioning on the train. As the train boarded, I was suddenly surrounded by many more people in suits, and then there was me in meggings and five-finger shoes. And just for good measure, I think that was the governor of Wisconsin in the background. But I'll freely admit my prejudice here. Part of why I was so flustered is because I genuinely had no idea that Amtrak's toppest brass would be on board. Maybe it's years of my own car-brained conditioning to think of American businessmen as drivers and first-class flyers, but it was frankly refreshing to see an executive literally down in the trenches of his own company and ultimately riding almost the full route end-to-end. And I've since learned that this isn't an aberration, with Amtrak conductors telling me he's routinely spotted at Philadelphia 30th Street and Washington Union stations. In part because he's just so hard to miss, standing at, 4 meters tall? If I was a more professional journalist, I wouldn't have been starstruck and I would have gotten a proper interview with him. But tough luck, you're stuck with me, and I'm an idiot. Anyway, quickly in tow was Mark Magliari, Senior Public Relations Manager of Amtrak, and pointer out of the fact that I really should have plugged into the mode box.
Pardon me?
I was not expecting this.
That he's going to ride the train?
Oh, that he was going to talk to tiny little me.
You're here. You took the time to be here. We can do it. We'll certainly do it. If you want to talk to him or to me, it's whatever we do. How far are you going?
All the way to Chicago.
Well, so I'm going to Glenview, so I'll be with you most all the way.
And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard the inaugural Amtrak Borealis, train number 1340. This train is bound for Chicago, Illinois. This Borealis features a cafe lounge car with first-class seating located at the rear of the train. Also, at this time, the conductor will be coming through the train to seat check all your destinations and inspect your tickets. Please remain in your seats until the conductor checks with you, after which you may freely move.
Departure right on the advertised.
Once again, welcome aboard Amtrak train 1340 in Borealis. We invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy your ride today.
Thank you so much for your the train to go.
Here we go.
Heading out of St. Paul Union Terminal. Sorry. Tickets, please, folks.
Thank you.
Where are we going?
Chicago. All the way.
Heading through a massive yard. There are even still freight cars labeled for the Dakota, Minnesota, and Eastern. I didn't know that. I'll have to keep that in mind for my own layout. Rail fanning is very useful. For a moment, we were flanked by 2 freight trains on either side, and it sounded like the engineer gave a trill of the horn for rail fans on Dayton's Bluff.
I was going to say overnight, but
More applause for Derek James, everybody. As well he deserves it.
It's a rolling party for movers and shakers. Is hilarious. More than half of everybody's standing. It's quite incredible, really.
Approaching Joseph Aiello, I started to ask a sophisticated question when disaster struck.
So then I have a question for you that I've been wanting to ask somebody in the advocacy industry.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about rail advocacy pre- and post-COVID? Because it feels like specifically there has been a swing towards urbanism, like with all the YouTube channels, basically, City Nerd, Not Just Bikes, a bunch of other ones, that kind of started sometime around when everybody was trapped at home. And a lot of...
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can tell, we are traveling at a slower speed than we normally do at this time. The reasoning for this is we've just been issued a high wind warning by our dispatcher, meaning that we do have to travel at 40 miles an hour. We're probably going to be at this speed for about 15, 20 minutes or so. So once again, we do apologize for this, but it has been issued by the dispatcher.
There's tornado warnings.
Oh, gods.
Thank you for your patience.
That would be one hell of an inaugural trip. I'm from Washington State, and I still have memories of the Point Defiance bypass. Anyway, so obviously, like, urbanism, railroading, and transit advocacy has been around for a long time among us fanatics, though. But it seems like that it's now been made mainstream, largely, if nothing else, due to a lot of these YouTube channels. But that's just my anecdotal sense of it.
You're not wrong. So the one thing we had to do as an association is because a number of our in-person events got canceled. Actually, my coworker and I were supposed to go on a Front Range, Wyoming, Colorado, down to Albuquerque kind of trip to highlight the work being done there, down in New Mexico. And we had all these connections. We canceled the whole thing. The whole trip got scrapped. And we're like, so, okay, no one can go anywhere. What do we do? Like, it's the pandemic. Everything's locked down. What do we do? Well, we have all these people that we still want to highlight. All this work being done. Digital. We ended up, over the years with 30 plus different webinars, and the Front Range being the first webinar we did in the pandemic era, and got really good traction. But I think you're not wrong in the while everyone was kind of like locked down, I think it's, and I joke around that, it's the rise of the true crime podcasts. It seems like everyone has a podcast, right? But like, there's nothing wrong with that. The one thing, for all its warts, social media has given the rise to voices that normally we wouldn't hear. And whether it be the urbanists, the bikes, the yimbies. So like, but I think we've been in the digital age for a very long time. I think we're almost seeing like a golden era of using the tools of the digital age. And I think it's really like, while there might be a rise of certain subjects, I think it's, as you're right, some of us more fanatics, have already known about these things. It's become more mainstream, like, oh, wait, I'm a bicyclist. I like bike things. I live in a city. There's a podcast for me? Or there's a YouTube channel? Or there's a TikTok? Like, I think it's starting to get people to, like, learn more on, like, hey, we've been out here for a while. Like, we've been new. And I think that's really where you're starting to get it.
Every revolution comes in pairs.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. I mean, and truly, I believe that I heard it once, and I don't know where I heard it from. The revolution will be digitized instead of televised. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of dig that. Like, it's...
I do too.
Yeah, I heard it, honest to God, probably on a podcast at some point. It might have actually been some years ago, but yeah, the revolution will be digitized, and I think we sort of like stand by that. Like, there's nothing wrong with, because you still want to be in the field talking to people, as we are on the train and all that stuff, but you also want to, like, people that can't be here, you want to show them what's up, talk to them what's up, let them know what's going on, and it's, via the microphone, via, a link, a subscribe, things like that. So it's any way we can get that voice out, easier, and more manageable.
Yeah, thank you.
Your fit is just perfect.
Oh, thank you so much. I should really pull up my member number so that you guys can get it for you. Again, I've been a gold member for at least 4 years, probably going on 5 now.
And so actually, you probably see my name a lot on all the emails you send out.
Yeah, gold monthly subscription.
Nice. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for...
You're welcome.
For quite literally keeping me doing my job. It's funny, the first, so I got elected to the council in 2016, and I was hired in 2018 full-time as like because I was living in Cambridge, so I was the Northeast coordinator. And so I just kind of like just moved up into the kind of like public facing. And the first 2 projects I worked on as a staffer was the Southwest Chief Campaign and the study we did for the Baby Builder. So the first study we did, actually, the economic white paper for Alberta, Minnesota for this route is actually one of the first things I actually did research for. It's kind of cool to actually be, especially like living in Minnesota now and Empire Builder.
You live here?
Yeah, I live in Minneapolis now. Chicago's my hometown, so I go there a lot. But I'm on the Empire Builder constantly. My parents were selling the family home and moving to Florida, and so yeah, I know we don't speak of it. It was their decision, whatever. But probably for the first 6 months of last year, I was in the Builder twice a month. To kind of go down there, help them move, and this and that. Like I can work on the train.
So it's basically your train.
Yes, I was racking up the miles. But it's also nice actually because coming back, everything's on time, catching an Uber at like 11 o'clock at night, in St. Paul, trying to get over to Minneapolis. Like, I like the idea of taking the Builder to Chicago and the Borealis back because you actually have that earlier come back to Minneapolis. So I think that's perfect.
Well, you don't like arriving at midnight?
Yes. Actually,
Well, it's funny. The name should be traded because you don't get to see the Borealis on the Borealis.
It's actually, that's true.
It'd be really hard to see it on the train, though. So when you're just in time.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
You want to be stationary.
Love living in I've only lived in cities. I love living in a city. I'm an urbanist gal. But there's something to be said about, I have a bunch of friends of mine who actually were up in Duluth last weekend, or actually just in Wisconsin, because everyone got to see the Borealis. I'm sitting at my front porch going, I can see airplanes. But I'm in Loring Park, so I'm actually right in the city. So there was light pollution I couldn't see a thing. I did see some of the cloudy looking waves of it, but for naked eye, I was told apparently that was it. I just couldn't tell.
Well, now if only that you had some sort of way to get out to a major outdoorsy destination, perhaps an express train that could take you to see the Northern Lights.
Yeah.
Perhaps just throwing that one out there.
I'm holding on until I get my train to Duluth.
Well, that looks like a river to me.
I'm also not used to being on this route on a single level.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was wondering to myself, because they advertised the train set tour, and I was thinking to myself, ooh, venture cars, charger locomotive. Oh, wait, no, Horizon coaches.
Not yet. They will have them.
But then I realized, that's why they're offering a train set tour. Because this is Minnesota. They've never had this before.
Yeah. This is new for them. MnDOT they're buying into the pool, so they'll have their own sets and all that stuff at some point, right?
Oh, that's what.
Get some equipment service.
Train first, coaches later.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In seeing Jim Matthews return to Joe Aiello from the cafe car with food bounty, I commented on his stupendiferous blazer.
He is a fashion icon.
That he is. Thank you so much, by the way.
Oh, you're very welcome.
By this, I was inspired to go for luncheon myself for the first of several stops of the day to the cafe car. Anybody who thinks that meal service on Amtrak is a money-losing proposition clearly hasn't met me, and over the course of the day, I got to know the cafe car attendant / de facto bartender quite well, to the point that I wish I had interviewed her properly.
Trip to the cafe car, and it seems that the river has moved to my side of the train for a fantastic view.
Yeah, no, yes, absolutely. Started that. I had equipment.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Our first stop very quickly is going to be Red Wing, Minnesota. If you're viewing us at Red Wing, please start here with your personal belongings. We'll give you another hour and 15 minutes or so if you're leaving at Red Wing. Once you get Red Wing, Minnesota, first stop.
Oh, this is a very cute waterfront station. Lots of people are out checking out the train. Oh my goodness, there's a massive celebration. Hundreds of people on the platform, all waving. This is a huge event. Food trucks and everything. Wow.
An owner should be just about an hour from here. So once again, Winona, Minnesota, will be our next stop.
That's the beautiful thing about trains. We are outpacing the adjacent cars. The engineers giving lots of beautiful trills to passing rail fans. People really are out and about for this. Oh, and a gorgeous view as the Mississippi River comes into full scenic beauty on the left. We're about maybe 10 meters over the surface of the water, and it is an incredible panorama. I'm reminded of an artwork painted by J. Craig Thorpe. The title of the piece was Will the Fog Ever Lift? It was of the Empire Builder passing through either this exact stretch or a very similar one. And the title referenced both the literal fog of a misty morning in the painting, but also a metaphorical question of will passenger rail, modern passenger rail, ever have a heyday in the United States? I think I can say the fog is finally lifting.
Oh yeah, but we had the on-time compliance issues, the different disagreement over what was causing the on-time.
This is truly a great river. It has to be over a kilometer wide at this point, possibly even 2.
So did you talk to Stephen?
I haven't much yet, actually.
And you're going all the way to
Chicago. Yes.
Things will settle down after Columbus. Things should quiet down a lot.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You know where to find me. If you want to interview your last choice person, I'll be back. Be that backup.
Mark Magliari was far, far too modest. Whilst I never got a proper interview with Stephen Gardner, Mark was well worth my time. Anyway, I shared with him my Wisconsin Talgo joke, and he astutely noted,
Look, I was here for that. The elections have consequences, and if you're going to try to play the lowest common denominator, you are John Kasich in Ohio, or you are Scott Walker in Wisconsin. And you're going to a place that's not on the map for getting trains. When you sort of say, you want those folks in Madison to get a train? How come they should get a train? You have roads that need to be fixed. Wouldn't you rather have your roads fixed? Knowing that you can't use that money to fix roads. It's only for trains.
well, among other things, he had to pay for the full purchase price of the train sets, so then that money couldn't go to the roads anyway.
Yes.
Whether or not he could have shuffled it around from one pot to another.
They couldn't use federal money to pay for the trains they weren't running.
Exactly.
It's all state money. But the trains are running in Nigeria now.
Exactly. And now, sub-Saharan Africa has more modern passenger train sets than Wisconsin. Literally, we are in, when were these built? 1980-something?
These are 80s vintage cars, yes. And that's a 90s vintage locomotive. But he's going to be replaced in the next 5 years. You've seen the new locomotives.
Oh, yes.
The builder came in today with 2.
Oh, I made sure to watch it. Were they ever able to fix the, what was it, the air intake that keeps freezing over?
Well, there's been running modifications, and there were lessons learned from the state-owned charges that were applied in these. So yeah, there was some teething.
After complimenting Siemens for their design, and inevitably breaking out the pictures of my Mindot Talgo, we briefly discussed that Derek Janes and his husband are also model railroaders, and that Mark runs a few of his old Bachmann trains around their layout. The discussion moved on to my observations from the previous day that Lionel is the Harley-Davidson of model railroading, squandering future customers for present cash grabs. At that, we got onto the topic of motorcycles.
I'll say this about Harley-Davidson. My son had a Buell, which was the sporty, younger version of Harley.
And then they killed that.
They killed it. And I don't know because they couldn't compete with the Japanese Rice Rockets or what, but and of course he crashed his Buell and he's permanently disabled, so my endorsement of motorcycling is not at all.
I didn't want to say anything at the time because I needed to collect my thoughts on the matter, and I have been considering an episode on motorcycling and urbanism, but for now, yes, motorcycling is more dangerous than driving, but looking at the crash statistics is enlightening as to how, specifically, motorcycling is dangerous. For one, the absolute majority of motorcycle crashes are single-vehicle incidents, so basically hooligans pretending their state highway is a race circuit and pushing themselves farther than the bike could take them. A majority of motorcycle incidents involve alcohol, even under the legal limit. And finally, most motorcyclists don't wear the appropriate amounts of gear, with the bifurcated split between squids in a helmet and flip-flops on their Ninja or CBR, and boomer dentists cosplaying Sons of Anarchy with cut-off leather vests and upside-down cereal bowls tied to their head with a string riding around on $60,000 chrome recliners. So as long as you ride well within your limits and regularly take motorcycle skill training courses, practice strict sobriety while riding, and always wear the appropriate gear, ATGAT it's called, all the gear, all the time, you automatically separate yourself from the vast majority of people and behaviors that lead to serious incidents, and ameliorate the severity of those incidents when they do occur. Furthermore, the majority of motorcycle crashes occur within the first 3 years of riding, so if you act especially safely and build up your skills during your early years, you'll likely be set. I want to note that I am very sorry to hear about Mark's son, and none of this is an accusation that Magliari Jr. is a lesser motorcyclist or person for having crashed or been disabled. I'm more trying to note that, knowing the statistics and adjusting my behavior accordingly, I willingly accept what dangers there are into my life, and think that it can be done in a way as to make a reasonably satisfactory reduction to the dangers therewith associated. On the flip side, the remaining incidents are all mostly drivers being their regular amounts of negligent evil and not noticing that a motorcyclist is there, to then merge into them. In most multi-vehicle crashes, it's almost always the car that's at fault. Sure, in such a crash, I would be safer if I was driving a car rather than a motorcycle, but by that logic, I would also be safer if I was driving a tank and yeeted the car out of existence before there was a crash at all. So I think to critique the motorcyclist for being so vulnerable is to engage in victim blaming, and rather than fostering an arms race to the point that everyone is driving around in the most personally safe vehicles to the detriment of everyone surrounding, I think we should instead encourage a degree of social responsibility and prohibit drivers from buying deadly vehicles or being criminally distracted. There's even a joke among urbanists, which I agree with only half-jokingly, that car airbags should be replaced with an air-powered metal spike that will automatically kill the driver if they get into an accident. This would rebalance the negative externalities of car ownership, incentivize safer driving, and move the thousands of record-high pedestrian deaths seen each year in this god's-forsaken fuck-up of a country and currently collapsing democracy from the innocent bystanders whose only crime is being in the splash zone of automotive stupidity to the perpetrators of the murders themselves. I bet you, if people knew that vampiric insta-death awaited them behind their steering column if they accidentally ran over a pedestrian, we would see an immediate decline of distracted driving. Because of this, I like motorcycling because it fully exposes me, and mostly just me, to the dangers of driving, encouraging me to drive more carefully and less often. But otherwise, in both cases, single and multi-vehicle crashes, while being on a motorcycle does exacerbate the damage done to the motorcyclist, the crash statistics inform us that the fault lies not with the technology, but with the individual responsibility on the part of the motorcyclist and the idiocy of the drivers around them. Personally, I believe that cars should be strictly and absolutely banned from existence for all personal, non-commercial activities, and that the remaining vehicles for small businesses should be accessible only through extensive and exhaustive training. In 2022, 647 people died from mass shootings, and 42,795 people died from cars. If you believe that gun ownership should be restricted, or, as do I, similarly unconditionally outlawed, you should first look at your own driver's license, because that is more deadly by 2 full orders of magnitude. Cars are evil, and they must be stopped at all costs. And I haven't even touched climate friendliness and equity yet. Anyway, back to Mark and his astute observations on Harley-Davidson.
And in fairness to AMF, when AMF owned Harley-Davidson, they put actual engineering money into the V-twin engine and made it better. If they wouldn't have owned Harley-Davidson, I don't know who else would have put the money into it and basically saved the company. Now, you got kind of 70s, 80s corporatized, I got it.
Yeah, I mean, well, many brands did at the time, so I guess you can kind of understand that. Nowadays, though, the best thing in the past 5 years that ever happened to Harley-Davidson was the Livewire. It's like, finally, you have not only something new, like the electric motorcycle, it's also a sporty bike that younger generations actually care about. And what did they do? They took Livewire and they spun it off as its own separate company and brand. It's like, really? They stepped on a rake there. The one thing that could have saved their entire brand. They're like, we don't want that.
Oh, because it's not for old fat guys to be on 3 wheels.
Exactly. Their second most popular selling model is a 60-mile-an-hour mobility scooter.
Mark and I continued to talk for a long time about many things, including the Front Range Rail, which got us onto podcasts about failed rail efforts, shout out to Ghost Train from Colorado Public Radio and Derailed from Wisconsin Public Radio, then the difficulty of reactivating rail-banked trails because people get annoyed that a train could possibly go in the clearly designated train place they were aware of when they bought the property, which got us to looking for alternatives.
If you take a look at the railroad right-of-way, the CN's right-of-way, that Larry used to work with, between Chicago and Champaign, Urbana, is clearly suitable for 3 and 4 tracks wide. It's just that wide. And we're using one track, which they pulled up most of the second minute. So if you were going to look for a place with an existing right-of-way that's underused, you'd look at Chicago, Champaign, Urbana.
Chicago to the other Twin Cities.
Yeah. If you look at the Illinois owners between Chicago and St. Louis.
Here, he was talked over by the next station announcement for Winona, Minnesota, and said that there are state highways, I believe 45 and 48, between Chicago and St. Louis that were made largely redundant by I-55.
Designed to a highway standard, which mostly bypasses down this little town. But some would say, I'm not saying it for Amtrak, but some would say you could repurpose that for a higher speed corridor between Chicago and St. Louis. The state already owns a good chunk of it. So there's stuff out there. From Springfield south, where 66 had various incarnations. The state owns some of that too. That's 4 lanes wide, 2 for highway. And the rest of it's, grass.
Cut down on their mowing budget.
Yeah, well.
Amtrak's being helpful.
There you go. I'm going to go say goodbye to somebody who's hanging out. There you go. See you, Mark. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Winona, coming up next, guys. If Winona's your stop, please notice where the conductors are. The 2 center doors, those are the ones we're working. Thank you.
This is interesting. This, of course, if you remember, would be the terminal node of some of the Stadbahn networks I propose in my map of southeastern Minnesota. I have been wheels down here on my motorcycle before, and it is a somewhat smaller town. I would definitely not call it a metropolis or a hip artist community, but it is conveniently located enough that it is rife for development opportunities. There's a gorgeous old station over to the left. Lots of people filming. Over a dozen. Oh, excuse me. Just about 100. This train is a big deal. The scenery is still incredible. We're leaving the tall palisades behind, but the river is still massive, meandering in and out of various islands and channels. It's still on the left of the train.
And ladies and gentlemen, we're just a few moments away from our next station stop in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Here we cross the Mississippi River.
Are you doing okay?
Not according to my therapist.
Oh, well, then let us know what you need in terms of the train.
Oh, the train's fine.
Oh, okay, good.
Came, we saw, we arrived, we departed.
In traversing the train again, I stumbled upon Jim Matthews, asked for a selfie, and got to talking about how I am using the RPA's timetables generated from Amtrak's GIS data, an excellent service free to the public and quite useful in trip planning, go donate immediately to the Rail Passengers Association, to put together a future episode walking through every Amtrak train number 1 to 2290. At this, I observed, I have a problem.
It's okay.
It probably isn't.
We're here to help.
Anyway, I'm going to make another pilgrimage to the cafe.
There you go. Enjoy it.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, our next station stop coming up very soon is going to be Tomah, Wisconsin.
Brandy old-fashioned, a surly, and an M&M.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tomah giving a ride up and Tomah's your destination. Folks, we're going to make 2 stops. The first stop will be for the governor and our boss. So be prepared to be at Bob's doors. That's the center of the train for the second stop for all the other passengers.
I think we have a Borealis coming the other way.
Well, it's not a freight train.
We're not holding for a freight train because we're on CPKC.
That's what I was going to say. I have a direct line if I need it.
Because they are top tier performers.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, just an update. We have 7 sister train lines. We're just around the corner from us, so we should be going by in just a moment. Next station stop, Bean, Wisconsin.
La Crosse, we departed from the Mississippi River, and we've turned inland into Wisconsin. The land is now completely razor flat, and we're going high speed through farmland. Arriving Wisconsin Dells. Still plenty of people on the path. One person even has a sign saying "Welcome Borealis."
Now arriving Wisconsin Dells, citizens of Dells, make your way to the exit at this time for Wisconsin Dells.
Now that we're in Wisconsin, I can say that the stations are a lot less quaint. This is a much uglier asphalt platform. Wow. If I were to describe the Dells in one word, it would be Americana. I don't use that word positively.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, our next station stop will be in Wisconsin Dells. Let me take that back. We were already at the Dells. Excuse me. Our next stop is Portage, Wisconsin. Portage, Wisconsin coming up next.
Oh my goodness. At least, again, 100 people.
In Columbus, coming up next, if Columbus is your destination, please check ground for all personal items. This is Columbus coming right up to Columbus.
We're currently in Columbus, Wisconsin, which is the closest station to Madison, Wisconsin. Madison could have had a station if it wasn't for Governor Scott Walker. Madison is currently 90 minutes away by transit and just under an hour away by car, 62 kilometers. Do you guys know if Madison Mayor Satya Rose Conway just boarded?
No, she did not. So actually, she was in Portage, and because we're running about a half hour behind, she actually had to get to a meeting, like a city council meeting or whatever. So actually, her plan was actually to be on. So she drove from Portage to get here. So she didn't get on. Yeah.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Columbus station stop. I'd like to welcome aboard the people that joined us at Columbus. This is the Amtrak Borealis 1340.
Oh, the key to the city.
It's going to be downtown.
Whoa.
Station.
Whoa.
It's going to be just about 59 minutes from now. Once again, downtown Milwaukee's intermodal station.
Well, that's cool.
I've never seen a key to the city before.
My co-worker has the key to the city to Greenwood, Mississippi. It's kind of cool.
I was going to say it's probably small.
It's small, but it's actually in this really ornate, kind of fancy box and everything. It's really cool.
I was making a savage comment about Greenwood, Mississippi.
Well, it's small. Oh yeah, it's small but mighty.
That's not a very secure city.
Yeah, Satya Rose Conway, clearly not an aficionado of passenger rail, else she would have built it into her schedule. Which is a shame. I wanted to compliment her on subscribing to CityCast Madison.
Pivoting over, finally, to the one and only Derek James.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, you said on the, it was the League of American Bicyclists Zoom, right? That you recently took a bicycle trip on Amtrak, right?
Oh, I don't know how recent. I mean, yes, there was a big one a couple years ago, but then some smaller trips here and there. Yeah, absolutely.
Where was that big one?
I rode the Ohio to Erie Trail from Cincinnati to Cleveland.
Oh, that's beautiful. I've wanted to do that desperately.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was we did it over 7 days.
Oh,
so
wow.
we did about 50 miles a day. So I took the Cardinal from Chicago to Cincinnati, and then Lakeshore Limited from Cleveland So it was a total car-free journey.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I recently got to stop by Cuyahoga Valley on my motorcycle, the other bike. And I do some bike camping when I have the chance, but I've never done anything quite that long.
Yeah.
I have done a century before on the Gap Trail. That almost killed me. Between Connellsville and Cumberland, taking the Capital Limited. And if you know your Gap Trail, Connellsville and Cumberland are only 90 miles apart. So in order to get the full century, I had to, at mile 90, see my car and go 5 miles further away from it, and then 5 miles back in order to get the 100.
That must have been painful.
Emotionally devastating.
You should have done that at the beginning.
I should have, you are correct. I didn't. Goodness.
Yeah, I did 352 miles that week.
Holy
That's
damn.
the distance. So, and we mostly camped. One night, we stayed in a hotel because we're like, we need a hotel because there were 3 of us. And then the last night, we stayed with a friend whose house looks at a lake in Akron where the Ohio to Erie Trail crosses the lake on a boardwalk.
Oh.
And it was perfect because he lives 45 miles from Cleveland, so it was a perfect stop.
Oh, that must have been amazing.
Yeah, so it was nice to have some hospitality. And a shower. And Thai food.
Oh my goodness.
This is my husband, Andrew.
Oh my goodness.
You are
G4, letter G number 4.
That's it. Derek.
Nice to
I
meet
did
you.
a presentation online, and you recognized me from the presentation.
Oh, well,
Yeah. It was a fantastic presentation.
And just to be clear, I am not one of the we on the bicycle. I'm not sure I can ride them. At least.
I've seriously been considering getting a folding bicycle so that I can take it on various Amtrak trips. As it turns out, Derek's husband is tenured faculty at Chicago State University, and we ended up having a long discussion on the logistics of applying for a postdoc, and how I am more than willing to absolutely torpedo my career if it means I don't have to live in a car-dependent suburb or small town again. I even broke out my famous spreadsheet of every city on planet Earth ranked, which balances walk score, bike score, transit score, and other amenities against university and institution prestige and research output, which I am certain will become its own episode someday, by the way. Andrew said that he liked the spreadsheet and thought that it was a good idea if...
It does seem a bit excessive.
Anyway, during our conversation, one of my lovely observations was... I don't find success as much as I trip and faceplant into it. Towards the end of our conversation, Andrew offered this absolute gem of insight about the process of writing a grant when a colleague said...
There's a problem here. We're not setting this up, we need to fail fast.
Actually, that's a really good way to put it. Yeah, experiments have to be falsifiable.
Well, no. The point was we were setting this up so that it was a 5-year grant, and the way we were setting it up was we were going to fail in year 4. You need to fail in year 1. You need to fail often so you can figure out where the problems are. But if you set those points up of likely failure too far out, you're never going to make it, right? Because you need to fail often instead of catastrophic. But I thought that was good.
I am going to use that. Thank you. In retrospect, I absolutely should have asked Derek more about his role with the Borealis, as well as his purportedly fabulous model railroad, but after many hours of travel and festivities, as we approached Milwaukee, everyone was in a state of blissful exhaustion as we savored the glow of a very special day and the rewards of long-fought labors. That, or my journalistic naivety, is showing. Overall, Derek and Andrew are gregarious and magnanimous people, and I hope to meet them again someday.
We're now getting into suburban Milwaukee. The scenery has changed from farmland to low-rise 1- and 2-story buildings, and we are soaring at high speed, going double the speed of any surrounding car.
Milwaukee's intermodal station coming up next.
Many people don't know this, but Milwaukee's city flower is the concrete cloverleaf. Okay, we're now passing a really cute neighborhood over on the left. Milwaukee is a city that I also have explored insufficiently, and I will continue to avoid it because it is in Wisconsin, but they do have a streetcar, so maybe someday it might be worth an urbanism audit. But of all the cities in the Midwest, it is definitely one of the more car-dependent.
This is Milwaukee, downright Milwaukee. Derek James, for you guys up there, it's left side, track 3, left side, unloading.
You know you're hard when your name gets announced. Did you hear his name too? Yeah.
Crawling slowly underneath a massive highway interchange. Very ugly, and the only thing under the interchange is a parking lot. On one side, and on the other, an empty brownfield site. Lots of trash. Very unappealing. I would say a little less than 100 people on the platform, but this time none of them are celebrating, because from here on in, it's just effectively a normal pre-existing Hiawatha train and schedule. So they don't quite exactly know how special this train is. To them, it's just a normal train. Oh, would you look at that? Sitting right next to us on the platform is in fact a Venture passenger coach. Oh, it looks so modern on the inside. This is the first time I've ever seen one in person.
If you bail out and find your seats, please place all personal items, both bags, backpacks, small, medium-sized children, in the overhead luggage racks located above your seat, just like an airplane. There's also ample room, one end of each coach, in the oversized luggage racks for your oversized items. Folks directly across from those oversized luggage racks, you'll find the waste receptacles. Big rubbish, please no rubbish away. These train zooms tend to get dusty. We do appreciate your cooperation and helping to keep them safe. Outside the end of each coach, the waste receptacles and oversized luggage racks, you'll find the restrooms, one on the left, one on the right. Please feel free to use either one during hydration of your trip. Once again, folks, welcome aboard Amtrak train number 1340. Borealis service to Chicago. Our next scheduled station stop. International Airport coming up next.
You guys are always very resourceful bartenders. I appreciate that deeply. And thank you again. This has been a wonderful time.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, now arriving in the biggest little international airport in the Midwest. Mitchell International, now arriving.
One serious flaw about this station, though, I don't believe there's actually an airport shuttle. But there's a lot of construction now, which implies that they're going to do something with it.
Folks, for those of you who just joined us, welcome aboard Amtrak train number 1340, southbound Hiawatha service. No, excuse me, eastbound Borealis service to Chicago. Our next stop in about 14 minutes will be Sturtevant. Sturtevant, Wisconsin is coming up next.
Passing a northbound Hiawatha, Siemens Charger locomotive on point and trailing NPCU cabbage.
And ladies and gentlemen, now arriving Sturtevant. This is Sturtevant.
Some people out there are discussing bicycles on trains.
Folks, for those of you who just joined us, welcome aboard to Best of the Midwest. Mighty Amtrak 1340, eastbound Borealis service to Chicago. Sturtevant was our last stop in Wisconsin. We're going to be breaking through the Cheddar Curtain and down into the land of Lincoln. Our next stop will be Glenview, Illinois, coming up next in about 40 minutes.
In the waning moments of the inaugural trip, I also had a phenomenal conversation with, I believe, Mariah Morales. Seeing as everyone was beginning to tire, she did not consent to being recorded and asked for a regular conversation instead. But even so, her wit and insight was truly one of the sharpest on board. She asked me about my opinions of various things, such as the Minneapolis light rail and its, again, for lack of a better phrase, more raucous state, as well as St. Paul's urbanism and even my own molecular biology research. Truly a fascinating and deep person.
Given that we're now passing small load-to-the-ground stations, methinks we're now in Metro territory. It has been a very long time since I've ever ridden Metro. Local time is 1932, so if I am correct, we are still running a touch behind schedule on the order of 48 minutes behind.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the land of Lincoln. Coming right up stop will be our next stop of Glenview.
I'm heading out.
Take care, Mark. See you
Bye, Mark.
Goodness, this is such a cute place. The station is small and very low profile, but there's a bunch of buildings that are fronting the parking lot that have small, eating areas backing up to it. They're really cute. Little picnic tables with umbrellas and lots of lights and really adorable tree-lined streets. Chicago has beautiful building stock. I can't wait to see more of it tomorrow. And the first sight of the Chicago skyline is in view. At this point, there's a lot of built-up inner-ring suburban view. Italianate downtown buildings, mostly brick, some wood. Oh, one of the F-59 PHI, two of the F-59 PHI Metro units. They have California's Surfliner livery, but Metra labeling. This is clearly a very large yard. Lots of bi-level gallery cars. Slowly passing a metro train. Oh, with a bike car. Oh, how fantastic. Definitely getting into skyscraper territory. Oh goodness, is this the famous double bridge? Oh shit, I think it is. It is, which means we are very, very close to Union Station. I need to pack up.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are making our way towards our last and final station, Chicago's Union Station. Folks, if you'd be so kind as to please return your seat bags and tray tables that are full and upright position. It really does help us out in getting ready for our next go-around back to Milwaukee. Let's go, we're coming in on track number 30 tonight. When you exit the train, you'll make a right to find your way into the station towards your connections and beyond. We do appreciate your patience and understanding with us this afternoon. From the Twin Cities, the Cream City, to the Windy City, folks, we'd like to thank you for choosing Amtrak. Thank you for choosing Hiawatha. Hope to see you again soon. Chicago coming right.
We're out of Uber all the way to LA.
It was a supreme pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Good luck in your graduate school.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And now it's time to say goodbye to all our company. Welcome to Chicago. Have a wonderful night, folks. Welcome to Chicago. Have a great day. I hope I don't have to go to HR for my announcements. Welcome to Chicago. Have a good day. Take care, guys.
Mr. Matthews.
All right, great to see you.
I was already a very proud member of the RPA. Every single time I meet you, I am just honored by your endless enthusiasm. I am very happy that I can support everything that you do.
I'm glad you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I wish you many safe travels. And Joe, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Yes. Thank you. Quite a loud boy. So if I am already taking tours of airports, I may as well take a tour of the train station too. It is, after all, one of, if not the premier train stations in the entire country. Thank you so much, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome.
It was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Nice bike, by the way. Thank you. The folding bicycle that I was eyeing all trip long. On the other track is the Pepsi Can Heritage Unit. Locomotive number 160. I always did like the Pepsi Can livery. It's so distinctive, it almost doesn't look dated. Oh, I love Chicago so much. I know that building. Ah, what a day. Yes, there are only 2 through track platforms. Chicago is otherwise 2 stub-ended terminals backed up one right against the other. There is capability for through running, but in practice, obviously, there never is. Thank you. The hum of Chicago. So currently, to the left are all the even-numbered tracks. To the right is the designated queuing and waiting area. Interestingly, there are no trains waiting on any of the even tracks. I guess it's just late enough that most of the commuter trains have already departed. Oh yeah, it is 20:08. There are a bunch of elevators. Technically, all of the tracks are immediately accessible to the general public, but if you are an Amtrak passenger, they do ask you to wait in the queuing area. It's a bit confusing. There's a lot of construction and scaffolding at the moment. Oh, there are baggage pickup areas with a full-on baggage claim roundels like you would find at an airport. Okay, so I'm currently in the center. If I were to head straight ahead, I would encounter the other platforms, the odd-numbered platforms, I believe. Yes, ramp to trains. So I know a few years ago, 3 or 4, the main train hall of Chicago Union Station underwent a massive renovation. I'm assuming this is part of the same renovation project, it's just moving its way downstairs. Again, that hum is just, among other things, so peculiar. Okay, this is a little bit more lively. There are a few trains sitting on a few tracks, and a few people waiting for them. None of them Amtrak, maybe 1 or 2. This one is Milwaukee West. It's a Big Timber Road. There are a few people who I recognized from the Borealis who are making their way to it. There's another Metro train Milwaukee North to Fox Lake on track 15. Okay, now let's head to the central area of this lower waiting area. So this is in between the 2 platform concourses. It looks almost entirely like an airport lounge, same seats and everything. Oh, massive portions of the stairway and escalators are closed to renovation. North Lounge and South Lounge. I guess not much more that can be seen here. Chicago Union Station is, I will say, one of the slightly more labyrinthine stations. You do have to know a little bit of where you're going, which is kind of what the case was for New York Penn before the recent renovation into Moynihan Train Hall. Excuse me. How do I restate that? Before the renovation into Moynihan Train Hall, New York Penn was exhaustively labyrinthine, to the point that if you didn't know where you were going, you could be trapped in there for months. So going up the stairs from the Amtrak North and South lounges, it seems that I've gone too much further up than I would have wanted. This is an entrance into either the taxi stand or the skyscraper. So let's head down again. I do at some point want to find the food hall and the bar, because I have fond memories of that. But I think the only way I can find a way there is the odd way round. Yeah, let's go back the way I came. That'll be a little bit easier. Oh my goodness! They have an advertisement for Uncle Nearest Tennessee Whiskey. One of my absolute favorites. At the Junction Borealis. Oh my goodness. Fantastic. Okay. Back to the North Concourse. Heading up the low ramp to an intermediate level. Aha, here we are. Taking a right to the west, and this leads us to possibly the best piece of passenger rail infrastructure in the entire Western Hemisphere. The Great Hall. A vaulted ceiling at least 40 meters tall. It is massive and gorgeous. A soft yellow light bathes pale yellow white marble with blue accents in alcoves. A frosted white skylight makes up the entirety of the barrel ceiling. Ample seating. Adequate signage, too. Many exits.
Upcoming 8:33 train to Aurora will arrive momentarily and board on track number 2 on once again, BNSF passengers. The 833 train to Aurora will arrive momentarily and board on track number 2. This is a track check.
This is phenomenal. It has a grandiosity to it, but it's not garish. Beautiful. An employee immediately picked up a single piece of litter. Now the last part of the station that I want to get to somehow. Aha! Food court.
The 833 train to Aurora, now boarding on track number 2.
Ah, I remember this. So the food court, I believe, is part of a newer build basement area of adjacent skyscrapers. So there's an odd one-off little escalator.
May I have your attention, please? Amtrak announces the final boarding call of train 341, the Hiawatha, now boarding on track number 28 with a final destination of Milwaukee.
So I believe the food court is sitting a little bit above the Amtrak waiting areas, maybe a little bit further beyond. It's not a massive food court. We're not talking anything like Grand Central Terminal, but it's a little bit kind of like Old Penn Station, but it's nowhere near as dingy. Because it's a little bit out of the way, it's a lot quieter, and maybe the word I'm looking for is almost homey. Aha, here we are. The Junction, Chicago. This is the bar. It's a really tight little place that is just wedged up here. And during rush hour, it is just a fascinating and dynamic little place. It has upstairs and down. Otherwise,
the rest of the food court area is
just filled with a bunch of little establishments where you can grab a quick bite while waiting for your ride. I remember you. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's our pleasure. How was your trip?
Absolutely fantastic.
Awesome.
It was my 39th on Amtrak.
Wow.
I've logged just barely under 30,000 kilometers.
Oh, that's awesome.
So please, take my money.
Keep doing and we appreciate doing it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, this food court, it reminds me a lot of Old Penn Station, but if it had been done right. Okay, I think that's my tour of Chicago Union Station, or the much less appealingly acronymed CUS. Exiting to Adams Street, up a short escalator. Oh, this is a city. Looking over the Chicago River immediately upon exiting. So, a thing that's notable, of course, like many older intercity Union stations, the tracks were originally, I believe, open air, and then the air rights were sold later. And so a bunch of skyscrapers have been built over top it. And so that's why you have kind of like the weird basement-y feel and the labyrinthine vibe. But it does allow you some pretty interesting views upon exiting, and some even crazier views upon looking back, because the tracks are technically open air. If you look west at the station from across the river, you can see the trains through the side. I'm standing over top of them right now. It's very unique. I love this city. The architecture is absolutely fantastic. But more important than that, so is the street life. I could cream my panties all fucking day, but we're already late. I already have stuff to do. Something Windy City? I know that sound. Deja vu. I'm like an antibiotic-resistant infection. You just can't get rid of me. These skyscrapers are just incredible. It's like when you see stuff like this, it blows New York's skyline out of the water. Every single building is a masterclass in architecture. And not just that, I'd also posit that many of them do fantastically for city urbanism too. They all have much better street front urbanism too. I mean, it's not perfect. There are still many failures, but this is America after all. That's kind of standard. in a country where failure is the norm. Here, success is the norm and failure is the exception. That's incredible. This is a city. It always disappoints me when a lot of my international friends think of New York as the distinctive American city. New York is a fiefdom unto itself. It is a big city, and it has a lot of big city problems, but it also has a lot of problems that are unique to only New York City and nowhere else in the world. It is a city-state that could just as much be its own country more than anything else. Chicago is the American city. Murderously windy. Ooh, Clinton Street. That means the blue line should be somewhere up ahead. Okay. Going down the stairway. Would be nice if it was a little bit more ADA accessible. I have to go through the rigmarole. Where are we at? Transit card. I know somebody's going to accuse me of making this up. I promise you it's not. Okay. Pittsburgh, Vancouver, Atlanta, Indianapolis, Seattle, Philadelphia. Nope. Next one. Boston, DC, Dallas, New York, Sydney, Chicago. I don't want to do it. Current balance, 25. Okay, that's actually really good. Okay, never mind then. So if that's the case, I can just get right on. Again, I would hardly call it ADA accessible, but many of these older subways hardly are. I love this plaque. Clinton Station was, of course, named for Clinton Street. Clinton Street was named for DeWitt Clinton, the one-time mayor of New York City and a former governor of New York State, who sponsored the construction of the Erie Canal, which led to the rapid settlement of Illinois and the establishment of Chicago as a major shipping port, hence his importance to the city of Chicago. A quick, bite-sized bit of history. An interesting thing, the two tunnels in downtown Chicago, the Red Line and the Blue Line, both have continuous platforms across their 3 stations, making them the 2 longest train platforms on planet Earth. Hot rail. Fancy new trains. Well, somewhat fancy. If I'm correct, they're made by CRRC, which is currently not doing so great. They've had a series of catastrophic failures in deliveries.
This is a Blue Line train to O'Hare. Doors closing. LaSalle is next. Doors open on the left at LaSalle. Jackson is next. Monroe, Washington, Clark and Lake, Grand and Milwaukee, Chicago and Milwaukee, Division and Milwaukee is next.
I'm having one of those moments, a moment which I haven't had since Brooklyn, where you come up from underground and you don't know where anything is, and so your mental map is spinning around in your head and you're disoriented. This is a perfectly triangular intersection. That's not helpful. Oh, wait a second, that's the sign I recognize. Ashland. Yeah, I know where I am now, I think. So the plan for the moment, even though it's a little bit late, is to check in to the hotel. I actually think this was a hostel, though not a shared room. And then I will head to the Goose Island tap room. Goose Island, patron saint of NPR. or at least WBEZ. I've been wanting to go there for so many years, and I can have now the famous Goose Island IPA on draft, as fresh as it ever will be. Aha, here we are. Whew. Starting to believe the whole Windy City thing by now. I had a fantastic evening at the Goose Island Salt Shed Outpost. I like it a lot. It's kind of an adaptively reused old warehouse district, and one of the old warehouses has been turned into a Goose Island brewery. And I had genuinely some of the best beer I think I've ever had in my life there. And also some much-needed actual food. Also, while I was there, I had some fantastic discussions with some local Chicagoans who happened to not know about the Borealis, were quite interested in what I had to say, to the point that they actually immediately pulled up the Amtrak website and started pulling up ticket prices. One of them started planning a trip. So that just goes to show the value of being a perpetual advocate for passenger rail. In many ways, one of the biggest impediments to taking passenger trains is just simply not knowing that one is there. I will say, it went on longer than I was anticipating. The bartender saw that I was having so much fun with the two women that he gave me a bonus beer for free after I had already closed out. And then after that point, the two women said to me something to the effect of, "You should really stop paying for your own drinks. You are too interesting for that." And so, now we're currently looking at easily less than 6.5 hours until I have to wake up tomorrow. Ah well. Dear goodness though, Chicago. Beautiful city. Very friendly people.
And with that, I returned to my hostel for a well-earned and restful night in preparation for the final day of adventuring tomorrow. And as one final note from this entire experience, I have to point out that within just 11 days, the Borealis turned a profit. This has been Episode 5, Part 3 of the Proto-Future podcast, Inaugural Borealis, Day 3, Dignitaries Car. The theme music is Spark of Life by Benjamin Lazarus through Tribe of Noise. I would like to thank my patrons and especially my parents, G3 and Bethany, for contributing to this journey by paying for airfare. Extra special thanks to Mark Magliari, Jim Matthews, Joseph Aiello, Derek James, Mariah Morales, and of course Stephen Gardner, as well as those I didn't catch the full names of, including other Mark, Eve, and our fantastic crew, conductor, Carmen, cafe car attendant, and engineer, and everyone else on board, in addition to the other rail passenger advocates, politicians, financiers, civil engineers, bureaucrats, press managers, actual journalists, and citizens who spent the better part of a decade making this train possible. This has truly been one of the highlights of my life, and even though I felt I was face-planting into this event with a blundering sophomoricism, I received nothing but authentic enthusiasm and unimpeachable kindness from everyone involved. The people currently making things happen in the passenger train world are some of the most indefatigable humans alive, and whilst I was already an advocate before, my experience with them made me an absolute zealot. We are experiencing a transformative moment in the resurrection of passenger rail, and I am nothing short of honored to bask in the magnanimity of those responsible. I hope I have done you all justice, and I wish you many safe and enjoyable track miles ahead. If you would like to know more, you can visit the website at www.bgtmrring.org. That's Bravo Golf Tango, Michael Romeo Romeo, Indigo November Golf, Oscar Romeo Golf. To listen to the Manifesto and Prologue series, watch the Modern Modeling Clinic anthology, or read the free-to-access Patreon production blog, and please consider donating on a monthly basis to help defer hosting and equipment costs and support what I do. This podcast was written, recorded, and produced on the ancestral lands of the Susquehannock, Lenni Lenape, Oglala Sioux, Okta Lakota, Miami, Ho-Chunk, Peoria, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Menominee, and Kaskakia peoples. I would like to thank them for their historical stewardship of central and eastern Pennsylvania, southeastern Minnesota, southern Wisconsin, and northern Illinois. Thank you very much for listening. Keep riding trains, keep punching Nazis, and keep building a better future.